Tonight I'm going to suck your blood.
From the mid-90s to the early 2000s, there was an all-too-fleeting window of time where no-frills riffing, rap-rock hybridization, and god-awful band names ruled the airwaves with the sulking miserablism of nu metal. Embraced by the disenfranchised, the dude bros, and me, it was enormously popular right up until the tipping point where 9/11, Pitchfork, and Saint Anger sank the whole genre.
I don't want to blame it all on 9/11, but it certainly didn't help.
Whilst hip-hop and punk made the uneasy transition from the stereo to the screen with politically charged purpose, nu metal's multimedia footprint was confined to AJ Soprano's iconic wardrobe, a South Park Halloween special, and the golden age of Ozfest-approved soundtracks, featuring the god-smacked Scorpion King, Dracula 2000's Tap Rootiness, the spine-shanked Freddy vs. Jason, and many, many more. They're all superficially fascinating and have largely aged with all the grace of an octogenarian anus, but you could largely swap out these chain wallet anthems with a generic score without carving too much meat off the bone. If you want a tangible document of nu metal that fundamentally couldn't exist without all the drop-tuned dank, look no further than 2002's Queen of the Damned. A sort of sequel to Interview with the Vampire that traded pomp, circumstance, and simmering camp in exchange for sour-faced goths and disastrous angst. Lestat, an apathetic vampire snoozing away his immortality, decides to kick off the cobwebs and join a nu metal band. In doing so, he inexplicably becomes the most renowned musician on Earth. In an act of petty defiance, the vampire Lestat uses his newfound fame to reveal the existence of other vampires, and goad those who lurk in the shadows with his antagonistic lyrics. Yada 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 yada, it's a goddamn mess. A looser than a clown's pocket mashup of Anne Rice's second and third Vampire Chronicle novels, Queen of the Damned struggled in limbo long after the success of Interview with the Vampire. That film's production team, including Rice, petitioned the studio to try and get a canonical sequel off the ground, but that would require Warner Bros. To in any way respect the integrity of the filmmaking process. So, to retain the rights to the franchise and salt the earth for anyone else hoping to take a crack at the material, they hired a motley crew of relatively unknown and inexperienced personnel to just kind of wing it and hope for the best.
Not a great plan.
Everything in Queen of the Damned is presented devoid of literary context and completely at odds with the movie that preceded it. Dominic Noble does a meticulous breakdown of just how much this pisses into the wind as an adaptation, and I've linked that video in the description below, because you're probably not here for my liner notes on meddling executives and compromised integrity. You want to revel in skulking buffoonery, while I slip in as many nu metal band references as possible. We open with Lestat being pulled from eternal rest by the alluring riffage of the world's most generic garage band. Then, nearly an hour later in the film, the titular Queen of the Damned is also awoken by, you guessed it, nu metal. Hearing more than just an oddly specific alarm clock for the undead, Lestat is so taken with these Kerrang-tastic sounds, he declares that all who perform it shall become the new gods of the 21st century. And he's being serious. He does know his stuff though, given that he essentially invented shredding in the 18th century by playing the fiddle as if he was trying to wank it off. When he's not basking in rock star opulence or chilling out in front of a billboard of his own crotch rocket, the Static X catches some shut-eye in a solid metal coffin while chilling out to some Roadrunner Records bangers. One saying is, I desperately wanted to be this guy when I was 13. Nerd! To craft the original song's blood vein croons throughout, the producers hired Jonathan Davis, best known for his scat-singing, bagpiping turn as the vocalist of nu metal pioneers Korn. With his penchant for theatrical introspection and maudlin lamentations, drafting Davis to pen this soundtrack was an inspired choice. The problem isn't so much the actual songs, even if none of them hold a candle to anything on issues. Rather than having actor Stuart Townsend take a few vocal lessons and sing in character, all his performances are overdubbed with Davis' unmistakable warblings. His California growls bearing no resemblance to the mangled French accent Townsend affects for Lestat's speaking voice.
It was a bold move, I admit.
I'm over it!
Then there's the content of these derivative ditties. Here are some of the supposedly super top secret lyrics in question, as performed by me doing the stupidest voice I can possibly manage, because if I play you the actual songs, I'll get a copyright notice.
Why won't you die?
Your blood in mine. Or how about,
we walk amongst you, fading, raping. Must we hide from everyone?
Wait. Are you telling me that Power Vamp 5000 here was the first person to out vampires as immortal blood drinkers? Wow, this crow cosplay looking dork sure is the WikiLeaks of extremely obvious information, making a central plot point that these lyrics are giving away some cloak and dagger code of honor is like calling Team America a threat to national security. Beyond that, the brief music video snippets we see from the band to support these tracks are fleeting glimpses of something far more compelling than the drab, horrifying parade of bluish lighting found everywhere else. Aping the black and white peculiarity of German expressionist cinema, it's playfully inventive and makes sense given that Lestat was around and probably taking notes back when the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and its ilk were originally released. This also ties in with nu metal's core tenets, taking disparate elements and mashing them together into something compelling and cathartic. Unfortunately for literally everything else here, this man untethered by history sensibility doesn't do Queen of the Damned any favours. For one thing, the timeline is totally fucked, with Lestat supposedly waking up after 100 years, even though we saw him undead and kicking in the early 90s, one much better movie ago. This film has also regressed significantly since the queer-coded, heteronormativity shunning interview with the vampire. Whereas the Lestat, Louis and Armand of that campy classic lean in and luxuriate in the homoerotic tension, Queen of the Damned has a serious case of the not gays. Which makes a horrible kind of sense given just how homophobic some of the lyrics and onstage antics in this genre were at the height of its popularity. It's also worth noting that this film was released at the height of illegal music downloads and nosediving record sales. Despite this, and the recurring plot point that Puddle of Blood here have never performed so much as one live concert, we're specifically told that they're the best-selling, most financially successful act in history.
What?
That's right. A band who've never toured or stopped by TRL for a quick how do you do sold over 500 million records in about 2 years.
What?
Anywho, the first hour and change of Queen of the Damned is a tooth-grinding chore that keeps teasing what we're all here to see. A fangs-out cybergoth adult concert to end all concerts, in which the heroine of this story, who I've not mentioned up until now because she's really just here to make Lestat seem less gay, infiltrates the event by going undercover as a nu metal fan.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
After which we get a few minutes of performance footage, and then a Garth Marenghi-esque vampire battle breaks out on stage, which the crowd just thinks is part of the gig. And if you've ever seen Rammstein live, that's actually not so hard to believe. To cap things off, the Queen of the Damned shows up to yoink Lestat away, they listen to Deftones and ruin a perfectly nice bath by filling it with Quim, then they get in a big fight because she wants to eat the entire world. This happens. And then we're done. And as a treat for sitting through all this garbage, here's a little bit of Mona the Vampire. God, I just wish I watched Mona the Vampire while listening to some Limp Bizkit. As a sequel to Interview with the Vampire, Queen of the Damned is an almost unquantifiable disaster. A gangrenous appendage where Tom Cruise's terrible haircut had once been. But when taken as an early 2000s artifact of the dumb but incredibly self-serious nu metal dichotomy, it starts to make sense. As misguided as Methods of Mayhem, as unintentionally hilarious as Fieldy's Dreams, with the try hard without actually trying hard energy of 1,000 Crazy Towns. It's a wing-clipped swan song for a musical style that was already on the way out, and one whose shocking quality in no way slowed down the horde of vampirical movies and TV shows that would consume the rest of the decade. 15 years later, Jonathan Davis got another crack at composing his cinematic opus with the very shit American Satan, but for better and definitely worse, Queen of the Damned is the closest thing nu metal has to a Repo Man or SLC Punk. And if that isn't worth a commiseratory spin of some shut up you're not my real dad, I'm gonna go buy a studded belt and dye my hair black bangers, then I don't know what is. A t-shirt that doesn't fit right but I'm gonna wear it anyway for our Patreon producers Jennifer C, Claire MD, Becky O and Nicholas Hilaire Revere, and a sincere reappraisal of the Limp Bizkit discography for all these amazing folks who support us over on Patreon. So what are your absolute favourite nu metal records of all time? Let me know down in the comments below where you can see mine, even though I know a lot of the bands have long abandoned the nu metal sound. Make sure you like, share and subscribe, and share these videos with your friends. If you're in a position to do so, consider checking out our Patreon at the link in the description below, where for as little as $1 a month you can get your name in the credits, a membership to the In Frame Out Film Club, and access to our private Discord community. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, this is In Frame Out.